Football is right around the corner as today the Seattle Seahawks, their rookies, are reporting to training camp, and tomorrow it's going to be the San Francisco rookies that will be going to camp. For the Bills, theirs are going to report next Tuesday. Speaking of the Bills, both they and the Sabres are going to be getting new alternate uniforms. That was confirmed today by Bills President of Business Operations and Sabres COO Pete Gwelly, but as of right now, no official date on when those will be released. And then another quick note in the NFL, the Titans have announced today that former running back Chris Johnson is going to be inducted into the team's Ring of Honor on September 13th when the Titans do play against the Jets. Baseball is back underway. We had one game yesterday. We've got plenty today. Yankees host the Dodgers at 7:05. Well, at 7:15, the Jays have the White Sox in town. And then the Bisons, they also get back at it. They are on the road at Syracuse with first pitch for that one at 6:35. Day 2 of the British Open does see a new leader at the top of the board. It is Lucas Herbert, and he has a sole lead at 8 under for the tournament. Do stay tuned. We're going to hear from Brian Kozel at 4:30 for his thoughts on today and as we head into the weekend. And also coming up over the next 2 days, the final 2 games of the World Cup. Tomorrow, it's the third-place game between France and England. That one's at 5 p.m. And then on Sunday at 3 p.m., the final between Spain and Argentina. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
My dad's not here right now. He's still at work. So I'm going to blast him.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I'm going to see if there's a clean version so that my parents and the people at my school will not get mad at me. We've got the spritzer filled with water, just in case if stuff gets too fire. I'm going to set up the speaker, and I'm going to listen to
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I think this is the best
Mike Schopp
feature that I've heard in a long time. I think his flow is really good in it, and I like his aggressiveness on it. And
the Bulldog.
Put not enough effort in it. I think overall his flow was good, but I don't like that mobile rapping. That was my review of
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Didn't need the spritzer. Wasn't fire enough. No spritzer for you. No spritzer.
Hi there. Let's have a fun Friday. Who says fun more than Sam Panayotovich? He'll be on with me in less than half an hour. Bulldog is off one more time, and then he and I will be back together on Monday. Sam wants me to ask him about his hanging out last night with Eddie Vedder. So remind me to do that. I think Sam will remind me to do that in case I forget, but hopefully I won't forget. Saying it helps. Saying it now helps. Yes, so Bulldog had his week off. I took my week off last week, sort of par for the course in the summer. There might be more of that in August, but I think of it as there's a break, not a bad thing, mostly good, it's just different in this job from the end of the Sabre season to the beginning of training camp for the Bills, which, I mean, for most of the last 15 years has been long. It's been like almost 3 months, 2.5 months, where it gets easier every year, but you sometimes feel like you're straining to come up with conversations that people are sort of like into. Like a lot of, I think, sports fans still listen casually. Our numbers reflect that, but are not necessarily driving around thinking about, what the Bills should do at outside linebacker, that kind of thing. So it gives us, as I see it, again, just speaking for myself, the freedom, if you will, to freelance, to bring up lots of different things. But I was thinking how this year has been different, significantly different in that way. Like, it's almost here. I tell people when it gets to be like the middle of August, especially when my kids were younger and maybe my friends' kids were younger, and they'd be like, oh, can you believe summer is almost over? I'm like, it's not over, though. It's still 3 weeks before school starts. It's still more than that before actually summer ends, literally. So don't rush it. We get to August, and I think we're all pretty exhausted from the heat and from, if you're a mom or dad driving your kids everywhere to tournaments and whatever. And so August comes around, and that slows down, and like, oh, can't believe it's already over. It's not. And so it's not over today either. But this year for us, for me, has been really fun, given that the Sabres took us to the middle of May. And then you have the World Cup. And now we're into the end of the World Cup and the Open Championship. I mean, that's there every year. And before another week or so goes by, then it'll be training camp. Like, it's been kind of packed with stuff. I mean, we're not in here mostly breaking down World Cup games, but it's there. Like when the Olympics are on, 2 years ago? The Summer Olympics, I mean, when they were in Paris 2 years ago, you had that, and that's all kinds of fun content too. So this summer has kind of flown, as I see it, how it feels to me being in here. And I would say too, now here comes always the same preface with me. I'm gullible, but I think in terms of the Sabres, Connor Hellebuck is still like a very realistic possibility. Even though normally when you get to, what is today? The 17th. The 17th of July, if not the 7th of July, is already kind of the point where the action has pretty much settled. And your team is your team. But, I mean, we've got our morning guys looking up Winnipeg Jets social media posts. And Jeremy tweeted how, this was a couple days ago, how the Jets opening night announcement tweet didn't have Hellebuck in either of the two pictures. And Sneaky Joe was on that yesterday and went back in their feed and looked up the last time he was in one of their pictures, which was on his birthday in May. Their season was over by then, for what it's worth. But it has felt to me, and I don't want to go long on Hellebuck, but I just want to say here on a Friday that I think the chances that he's traded are still pretty good. And I think if he is traded, the Sabres sound like, they might be the team. They're certainly, I think, one of the teams who would be in play for him. The thing about that, though, is like, okay, you're negotiating with Winnipeg. You're Jarmo Kekalainen, and you're interested in Hellebuck at your price, and you're trying to wait them out. You think the Jets have shown, and maybe even said to you, that they want to trade this player. They're ready to do it. It's been pretty public. I was saying around the time of the draft that I thought it was relevant, thought it was interesting that a lot of the NHL insiders were talking and tweeting about Hellebuck all the time, which for me was because there was pressure, maybe not pressure, that the Jets wanted action, and that's one way you might think you can get it, is to just keep putting his name online, keep putting it out there that, you're open to moving him. So with that, and just sort of how Hellebuck has talked and how it's all been reported, it has seemed to me consistently for, at least a month, however long since we started talking about this, that Winnipeg would want to make a trade. But here are the Sabres, and maybe other teams too. This is just kind of, I want to say an educated guess, but I don't know from the inside what's happening. I know Chad DiDomenicis has said that he thinks the chances are really low for the Sabres on Hellebuck, so maybe it isn't worth spending too much time on. But I still think that the Jets want to do this. And I don't know if the fact that he's not in a picture on their Twitter is anything. But I can imagine, I'd actually like to know more about that world. Because it's not the general manager who's tweeting on behalf of the team, of course. But I think there probably are times when management weighs in or steps in on what the team's social media team is doing. And I could see it, that the Jets organization, the GM, the owner, whoever in power would tell social media people, like, let's leave him out, which would be a really interesting existence if you were one of those people. It's not a super high-ranking position, I would think, in most sports organizations, but maybe there are times when you are like one of the first people to find out stuff, which would be pretty good. Of course, you best not repeat it. So I don't know. Maybe it means something that he's not in those pictures. Maybe it doesn't. I kind of think if it were I in charge of that stuff, if I had any sort of talent in graphic design and had any sort of aptitude there, I was in charge of putting the tweet out with the home opener and, let's go, October, whatever, be there. He would be in the picture every year necessarily. Like, he's my biggest star. And they didn't do that. So anyway, long way of saying, I still think Winnipeg probably wants to make that trade. And here are the Sabres waiting them out now as we get to July 17th. And their training camp is, 2 months away. I think the Sabres, this is a really, I hope I'm right. Not even that it necessarily ends in a trade, but I hope I'm right in thinking that the Jets want to move the player and the Sabres would like to trade for him. But they both want to do it on their own terms. They don't have a deal yet. And if I am, which is that the Sabres want Hellebuck, I mean, it's not something you can just do casually. This is not just this is not even Patrick Kane as an idea. Like, okay, we'll take Patrick Kane. Or maybe even somebody less than Patrick Kane. Like, just no signing is made on a whim, but obviously there's a scale, and some are more foundational than others. And this would be a foundational pivot, change, move by the Sabres if they were to do it. And I just think, as it might seem, as it does to me, generally advantageous that they're sort of the side with leverage. If Winnipeg wants to move its superstar player, then they probably feel like they have to do it. And we were there with Hasek, we were there with Eichel, where the Sabres felt like, ultimately that was the choice they needed to make, as painful as it would be to their fans and to their team. But in both cases, did they do that? And you can sort of see that coming. With Eichel, with Hasek, in both cases, Hasek is 25 years ago now, but in both cases, you could see the train coming down the tracks. Like, eventually, this guy's not playing for them anymore. This is going to happen. And so, I mean, that could be the Red Wings with Larkin. There are lots of times when players ask for trades and it doesn't happen. So it doesn't always have to end in defeat, if you will. But, here are the Jets. He's not on the Twitter page or whatever, opening night graphics, any of it. It continues to feel to me like they would want to do it. And now you have the Sabres on the other side and maybe other teams kind of trying to wait them out. I haven't even said it yet. I'm talking and talking. But that's actually what I should be doing because, Bulldog is not here, and this is the time of the show where I kind of talk alone for 22 minutes. The Sabres can't really wait forever on this, though, right? Is there a point at which, and it might be September, maybe. When would the time be? I mean, you haven't played games yet when you get to September. So there's nothing about that's like September 1st, say. There's nothing about that would necessarily make it too late. And maybe the Sabres themselves, if all of this is right, that they're hoping to get a deal done for this player, have a date in mind. But, but what? Like, I think you want to get these things done as early as possible. And so there might be kind of a tug of war where the Sabres don't want to give up what they're being asked for because they know they have time to sort of try to wait it out. But I think for them, at least in terms of the marketing side, which if I'm going to use the Winnipeg Jets Twitter, then I can try to apply that to the Sabres too, whether that's social media or the fans or anything. Even if it might be the roster, like if the Sabres were to swing a trade for him today, maybe that frees them up in some way, or, it wouldn't free them up financially, opens them up to some other free agent idea or trade idea that just makes them that much more interesting as a destination for some other player. Again, most of that dust has already settled. We're well past the draft and most of free agency, so I don't know how much in terms of roster management there is to do. if you were to make that trade. But, just speaking for myself, wouldn't that move, no matter almost what it cost the Sabres, wouldn't that move be worth tons in the fan base? Money, tickets, jerseys. I mean, if they traded for him today, they would have racks of his jerseys available when? I mean, I don't know. It's summer. Maybe they're not used to any sort of activity downtown in the store or anything like in the summer, but suddenly they trade for a superstar goalie. It's a great name and number and jersey too. Like, that's aesthetically for me, that it really works. If they were to do that, they could get just the additional time before the season selling it. And now they can't. I mean, this, again, is all based on the premise that they would want to do this. But I have always, or long thought that they do, and that this player probably will be traded. I think I heard that Elliot Friedman, even today, reiterated that while things are quiet on Hellebuck, that he still thinks there will be a trade. I hope I have that right. I'll correct that if I don't. So you can wait. You can wait as long as you want, I guess, until you get to a point where it's just over and he's traded somewhere else. So that's the end of that. But I would think that they would want the most they can get off the ice, really, mostly, in the offseason with him on the roster just for, financial benefits. Well, maybe it will happen. Maybe it'll happen today. I don't know. I mean, I'm not hearing anything specific about that, but I'm kind of working, to the original point or two that I made, like how the summer has been kind of busy in here for content with the Sabres playoff run and other things that have happened. This rumor is part of that. And you could choose to not care about it or not believe in it at all, think the Sabres wouldn't trade for the player, and then, we just move on to something else. But I'm still buying that they want to. Sam Panayotovich today, Mike Dempsey out of Jacksonville. We've talked to Mike many times about fantasy football and the Jaguars. His team of his specialty are one of the more interesting fantasy teams this year, if not just teams, because you've got a lot of questions. You've got, with ETN moving on, what their running back breakdown looks like. Will Travis Hunter play offense at all? Is Brian Thomas actually good? Great rookie season, big step back, maybe injured. What's he worth? Jacoby Myers there. They have a running back, I think out of Syracuse, LaQuint Allen, who could be relevant as like a depth pick in fantasy. Maybe he means something like a pass catcher. They drafted 2 tight ends. So Jacksonville has a lot of stuff to talk through, and we'll do that and just general fantasy stuff with Mike today as we get closer. When you get close to training camp, you get close to fantasy drafts too. And Brian Koziol at 5:30 talking about the Open Championship. I didn't watch very much of it today, a lot of it yesterday. I don't think my 10 picks look very good, but I watched Scheffler some today, and I don't think I've seen him make a putt in 3 years. Every hole seems to be the same in every tournament, every major. I'm not watching every tournament, but in the majors, when it matters to me financially, whether he wins, good or bad, it's just every tournament. If I didn't pick him, I think I'm afraid of him. I know he's the number one player. I think I'm afraid of him, and he's always 9 feet for birdie and misses, and it's a relief. And now this week I've got him, and it's just so, it's so frustrating. Imagine being him, but yeah, we'll talk to Brian about him and how things stand as already we come near to the end of round 2. Yesterday, so it's 5 hours ahead. Makes that like 20 after 8 in England. Yesterday, I heard they played until 9:55. So coverage goes off here in like 10 minutes. But they'll be, maybe not the leaders, but they'll be playing there for at least another hour. Some Bills this week. Talking to a couple of great guests, Ryan Paganetti on Wednesday, Rich Rebar yesterday, Sal 3 times. Just getting into different pieces of their roster and their offense and their tendencies. I know Sal caught one from Ryan today online about how when Dalton Kincaid was the only tight end on the field for a play or for the season, when he was the only tight end on the field last year for the Bills passed almost 80% of the time. So not surprisingly, right? That's intuitive. Big tell that when Kincaid is on the field and Knox isn't, that the Bills are throwing the ball at least most of the time. I wonder what the running plays were. Were they draws? Were they just like sneaks or something? Or were they just legitimate? Were they garbage time? I wonder how those 20% break down, because we all know what Kincaid is to them. And maybe this year, like when Sal tweeted about it, Ryan Paganetti responded to him like something to watch, because teams are loath to be like obvious like that. A couple of calls this week just about Joe Brady and feelings about the season, and most of it, frankly, sounds pretty negative. A caller maybe yesterday referred to them in a way to the Sabres of the last 15 years, like it's just all hope, that it's not real. And I don't know. I mean, I think the Bills deserve a little bit more credit than that, but one thing I'm thinking about is just sort of how to sum up how it sounds to me like the fans feel about this season. And I think wary is a good word for it. I think fans are unsure about what Brady is going to mean. And I think that probably, and this is something I want to get into here in the next few weeks, I think that probably includes some fans that were ready for McDermott to go. But then you promote from within, and does that really feel like the kind of change you were hoping for from them? So maybe the number one thing, probably, at least if you have tickets, the number one thing on your mind is the new building and just how exciting and different and what that'll be like to go across the street this year for the first time and set foot in there and, watch that Thursday night home opener in week 2 against Detroit. I think it'll just feel surreal. You'll look around and it'll look different. The people will be the same. The Bills will look the same, but just where am I? I feel like that will be something in the air that night, and maybe for a year and maybe for longer, just for how long the Bills have been at the old place. 50 plus years. But I think in terms of the team in this area, the fan base, I think there's a little bit of uneasiness about it, because really you have change in the coaching staff and you don't really have, I don't know what it would be, but you don't really have big roster movement that would calm you down. Again, I don't know what that would be. DJ Moore is a pretty big move. Bradley Chubb is a pretty big name. But a lot of the stalwarts, especially on defense, that you've been able to count on if they were healthy, Matt Milano, you've been able to know what you've had in a lot of these players, and a lot of them are gone now. It's been a real couple of years of transition for them. So I think there is some anxiety in the fan base about them, but you probably, like I think I would have told the guy yesterday, you probably can relax a little bit. In terms of the betting odds, which are not people who are rooting for them and painting their faces and singing the shout song, they're still right up there. So whatever you think about it, you got to give that some respect, I think. We'll talk some NFL with Sammy P, awards, odds, and different things. Offensive Player of the Year is a fun one for him, and we've talked about that for a couple of years. MVP always, Coach of the Year always, some of that. We'll do some baseball with Sam, too. His White Sox are in Toronto this weekend. They're still only about even money to be in the playoffs, even though they're in first place in the American League, has a lot of teams with losing records. So we'll get his analysis of that. As I said, Mike Dempsey and Brian Koziol today as well. Maybe some World Cup and more with Sam, too, if he's up for it. He's not a big World Cup guy. Eddie Vedder. I got to ask him about Eddie Vedder. Maybe he'll just bring it up before I can even do that. Thanks for being with me on this hot Friday afternoon. Bulldog back on Monday with me. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR.
For more comfort.
Now's the perfect time to make yourself comfortable with a new electric heating and cooling system from Belknap.
In Western New York, summer and winter bring extreme temperature conditions. Make yourself comfortable with Mitsubishi electric heat pumps, designed to keep your home cool in the summer and warm in the winter, no matter how hot or cold it gets outside. Call Belknap today to learn more.
I'm Gary Garfalo, president of Belknap. We work on your schedule. We don't charge more for weekends and evenings. That's why we say,
Give Belknap a ring.
It's really getting to me watching this golf tournament how I can almost never see the ball on an approach shot or a drive. On these drives, I'm not sure if they're using drones all the time, but the viewpoint is from so high up, and you're just looking down on this dead brown terrain with bunkers that are like the same color. And I feel like I've got no chance at finding the ball. They better tell me. They better zoom in or else I'm just lost. And it's working on my psyche. Like, ugh, is it me? I brought this up with Brian yesterday. He gave me a little bit of a break. But, man, I just watched this one shot and I have no idea where to look. The camera's not zooming in or zooming out. It's just sort of giving me the view of the green, and maybe it's because they don't know either. Maybe it's not me, but this tournament, I'm having a tough time. Matt Fitzpatrick, who missed the cut, one of my picks, he was the third favorite, said after his round today, I didn't really play that badly. The course was different. I was here 2 weeks ago, and it was green. Do they just sort of, whatever, if it doesn't rain? I think there is that, actually, where the weather is so changeable that they just kind of leave it to the elements, and if it doesn't rain for 2 weeks or something, then you get this. But I don't know. One way to do it. With me now on the Western Hotline, the one and only Sam Panayotovich, Fox Chicago. All right, Eddie Vedder, let's get right into it. What is this story?
Cubs are celebrating their 10th anniversary of the World Series, 2016. I can't believe it's been 10 years. I actually covered that team as a young radio reporter. So all the guys are back this weekend. They're doing this anniversary party at Wrigley. I think it's tomorrow. But last night, you know that podcast that Anthony Rizzo and David Ross do? Have you heard of it?
I have.
Yeah, Lovable Reunion is what they call it. And they got basically 8 of the players to come in and do a live not studio show. They're at the Chicago Theater. And they're all sitting in chairs around a table. Joe Madden's there, John Lester, Jake Arrieta, Dexter Fowler, Jason Hayward, Miggy Montero, and then Ross and Rizzo. And then at the end, they do an encore. After they show the Cubs win the World Series, they blow all the confetti out, and they're playing the Go Cubs Go song. And then they go, all good shows have an encore. And they bring out Eddie Vedder, who plays Someday We'll Go All the Way live. And people are like crying and clapping. And it was really cool, man. It was. And then Vedder's in the post-game, like a friends and family room that I was a part of. And, yeah, we're sitting there drinking. Eddie Vedder's like 2 doors down. It's crazy.
Is he pretty approachable?
Yes, he is.
It seems like it.
Yeah, and Mike, when the Cubs were making this run, obviously they hadn't won the curse. There was this huge Billy Goat thing and, all this crap. But Vedder, during the World Series, would play acoustic guitar on Waveland Avenue outside the stadium after World Series games.
Wow.
I mean, this is a celebrity. He's a celebrity, and he's sitting on a stoop right outside the ballpark just playing Someday We'll Go All the Way. He is a super Cubs fan, and he's not one of those guys like John Cusack who flips. Cusack, he's a Sox fan when the Sox are good, and he's a Cubs fan when the Cubs are good.
Yeah, Vedder was at the World Cup. They showed him one game, and a child went up to him, and I could read his lips saying, "What's your name?" Like he was talking to the kid and probably signing something. I don't know what else happened there, but he's had that persona, I think. Were you at Game 7 in Cleveland?
No, they didn't send me to Game 7. I was so upset. But I covered all the games at home that year, on all the playoff games too. And then the World Series came, and they sent the morning sports guy instead of the weekend guy. Okay. Different story for a different day. Another thing on Vedder too. I know we're going to talk betting, and I got plenty of updates from Vegas on things that wise guys are betting and not betting. But I've never, and I've seen Eddie now probably 5 or 6 times. I've never seen that guy on his phone ever.
All right, that's a compliment, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yep. The one thing I remember about Game 7, Chicago-Cleveland, not really caring too much who won. I guess I probably wanted Cleveland to win. They had their own drought. But the weather report, whatever inning, late innings, suddenly here come these thunderstorms. And what are they going to do about this? I remember sort of panicking in my house watching the game on Fox, thinking the storms are imminent and it's tied in the 9th or something like this. And there could be hours before they pick the game back up. It never happened, though. It never happened until, I assume after the game was over. So I remember being really sort of stunned that they got it in.
I remember having the under in the game, and when Rajah Davis hit that home run off Chapman, I wanted to cry because then they had to go to extras and all that. They actually did talk about that last night when the rains did start, downpouring. I guess the head of Fox called the commissioner of baseball and said, if we just pause this and start the game at 7:00 tomorrow, we can make $25 million. And then Theo and the GM of the then-time Indians, I think Chris Antonacci is his name, they were like, no, let's finish this tonight because we won't be able to sleep.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it did eventually rain. All right, your White Sox are in Toronto this weekend. I read, I think maybe from Evan Abrams, baseball's most profitable money line team this year, the White Sox. That's common sense. I mean, they've been bad for years, and maybe they're kind of a hard sell. Tied for first coming out of the break, but still only about even money to make the playoffs from what I saw at Bet Online. You and I both have them to do it. What should the numbers be?
Well, I don't think they should be, I don't think you should bet 2-1 to win the division at this point. In fact, you're starting to see some serious steam on the Tigers in a lot of ways. And we've talked about the Tigers. I mean, they're the best team in the American League since June 1st, record-wise. They've just been on a tear. And now they're healthy-ish. Scooble's back. They're not going to sell at the deadline. They didn't have the greatest start to the season, but, Mike, they're 3.5 out of the wild card right now. Mm-hmm. So they're right there. I don't know. We talked about this on Bear Bets this week. I don't know if it's a better idea to bet them to win the division or to bet them to win the pennant. Because, if they get in as a wild card team and you got to face Tarek Skubal game one, that's a problem. I don't know that they're going to win the division because they've got a much, tougher path there. Currently 6.5 back. Is it better to take the Tigers to win the division or win the pennant? What do you think?
Ooh, well, I think I might like both as you lay it out. It depends on, I think, I'm not sure I have a strong enough opinion on Chicago or even Cleveland to push against how many wins is it? Is it 88 wins? Is it 90?
I don't even think it's that high, honestly. Okay. It could be an 85, 86 win division. It's not a great division. The Sox are in first, and I'm happy because we gave this audience over 66.5. I think we'll get there. They're 50-45 now, but I don't, I would never bet the White Sox at 2-1 to win the division. When we were talking about 40-35 before the year, now they're 2-1, and it's just not a bet I would ever make.
Yeah.
Of all those teams, though, if I had to pick one of those four, we're throwing the Royals in the garbage, White Sox, Guardians, Twins, and Tigers, at this point, I would bet the Tigers, I think.
I've heard, too, how they want to be buyers, and I think it's probably just because they have him. Skubal would be the piece you move if you're selling, and they don't want to do that. I respect that. I mean, they don't want to do that. They're close enough, and you talk about 3.5 from the wild card. The wild card teams in the last spot right now have losing records. So whether they win the division or not, it won't take that much for any of those teams. Detroit and Boston probably, right, have been the two best American League teams for the last 6 weeks or month or so. Boston keeps winning. So those would have been pretty likable bets now if you'd made them a month ago. Detroit or Boston.
I looked at this the other day. The best teams in the major since June 1st. Do you want to guess who the number one team is?
Tell me.
Marlins.
Okay, right. Yep.
Marlins are 26-11 since June 1st.
Yep.
I got a little ticket on them to make the playoffs. That's a nice one. I'm not going to just brag about all my good bets. I also bet the Mets to win the pennant. That will not happen. So in order, it's Marlins, Phillies, Cubs, and Tigers. The best four teams since June 1st.
Very good. Texas has made a move, too. First place in the AL West. I'm not sure their record is that great. Another pretty weak division. So are there any second half, as we wrap on baseball, any second half bets you like from, as we start post All-Star break?
We were having this conversation the other day, and it's probably not going to win, but if Pete Crow Armstrong continues to play like this, I mean, his June was unheard of, the numbers he put up in June. I think there were two players that had done what he did in June. It was Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. You're like, oh, okay. And Pete Crow Armstrong. Yeah. Can he win the MVP? Over Ohtani? I guess is the question I'm asking rhetorically, because I look at the price now.
He's the second
Ohtani,
choice.
Yeah, he's the second choice, and he's a distant second choice because Ohtani's minus 1,000. Crow Armstrong is 8-1 though to win the MVP. It probably doesn't win. I think it could be a fun run. The voters are just enamored with Ohtani. And if he has any of those games down the stretch where he strikes out 10 guys and hits 2 home runs, like that could seal it.
I mean,
September.
you could win that backing into it like the way whoever is going to win the AL MVP is going to back into it with Judge out for months. I mean, Ohtani's knees, he's not pitching. Maybe that ends up being a bigger problem. And then if it's early enough in the season where that happens, somebody else has to win.
What they're trying to do at this point, here's what the books are doing. They don't want you to bet Ohtani. So they're going to make him as expensive as possible. So if you want to do it now, you got to lay 1,000 and win 100, which nobody should do. I guess if you're super rich, you can do it, but that's an insane bet when he was, plus 110 before the season. But now they're pushing all these other guys out. The PCA's 8-1, Schwarber's 35, Soto's 40. They kind of want you to pick the apple a bit because they know that Ohtani's likely going to win. But, man, that PCA number, if he does what he did in June and he can keep this up for 3 more months, he could win it. I just don't know that he will.
With Sam Panayotovich, I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. NFL MVP, Sam. Lot of it's tight at the top with all the big quarterbacks there. Justin Herbert is somebody that I sort of can get behind. I feel like everybody is saying that, though, and the last time I looked, he was the third choice. So where is the value in MVP?
I look at a guy like Jaden Daniels, who we're now putting below Drake May and Caleb Williams. Well, Jaden was hurt last year, obviously. He played through injury and didn't make it the full season and all that. But that's a guy that just has no shine right now. Like, there's nobody talking about him.
Okay.
And, 25-1. I'm in that. Like, we've talked for years now about prices and ranges and all that. And, he was I think he was the 5th favorite last year coming into the season off his rookie campaign. And now he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's way down there. 25-1 is the best number on Daniels. And, also on Bear Bets this week, we were talking about the NFC East. And one guy brought up the Eagles. Another guy brought up the Cowboys. Another guy brought up the Giants. And I'm like, the Commanders are going to win then. Because that's kind of how it is. But that's the first number that jumps off to me. If he can put the pieces together there and he's healthy, which by all accounts he is, 25-1 is a really good number on Jaden Daniels.
The shine being off him, as you put it, makes sense to me. I mean, I know it more from a fantasy perspective. And Sam, I drafted him recently in the 9th round.
Wow.
It's 3 rounds after Lamar Jackson. It's 5 rounds after Josh Allen. It's after Caleb Williams or Joe Burrow in this case. I mean, it doesn't always go in the same order, of course, but it's almost like people have forgotten.
I remember him being like the 5th quarterback off the board last year.
Yeah, and he is almost that anyway. It's a little bit that the position is being pushed down, but still, I mean, with the upside there with Daniels, I mean, I'd much rather have him in fantasy than Burrow. And even Caleb Williams, I think. That's closer.
I got a couple notes for you on both Burrow and Caleb. So
good.
John Murray runs the book at the Westgate in Vegas, one of my dear friends, and he said that the Bears – I laughed before I even tell you. The Bears have the most tickets to win the conference, the Super Bowl, and Caleb Williams has the most tickets to win the MVP. So the Bears,
they're back.
As of now, are the most public team in Vegas.
They're back. It took 1 year.
Yeah, so they'll go 5-12. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals are the wise guy team this year. I told Bulldog this last week, but we can re-rack it because another sharp group came in and bet them to win the conference and win the Super Bowl. There's multiple groups that have went into Vegas and bet big on the Bengals to win the conference and to win the Super Bowl. So if that's the case, maybe Joe Burrow MVP isn't the worst idea.
I don't think Burrow is a bad idea for MVP. I don't want him in fantasy over Jaden Daniels because he never runs. But I don't think he's second favorite, Burrow, and they're favored in 15 games. So, yeah, I mean, that adds up. Plus, we're living at a time where there are legacy-type votes, like John Cooper and Matthew Stafford. So maybe Burrow, it's his turn at that position. Offensive Player of the Year, we've talked about that a couple of years. You like Jefferson?
Yeah, I'm going there. I like both of the receivers from LSU, to be honest. Chase is 10-1, but there's a bigger range on Justin Jefferson. He's as low as 12, and he's as high as 18. So go to FanDuel, get the 18. Don't bet the 12 or the 14. 18 to 1. If he gets any quarterback play, he could be a weapon.
Big if.
I mean, I'm okay on Kyler Murray. McCarthy is a 0. But even last year with no quarterback play, Jefferson had over 1,000 yards and 141 targets. At least Kyler Murray can throw the ball. Here's the issue, Mike. Last year, Jefferson had 2 touchdowns. 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
It
crazy.
won't happen again. It won't happen again. There's no way.
One of the more interesting situations in the league is Murray there, as he's been such a polarizing figure. And it looked like last year, McCarthy had lost Jefferson week 1 in Chicago. Like there's conversations on the sideline, week 1. So not a great omen for your season. All right, before you go, World Cup? No, that's not your thing. They might have a problem getting the game in with the smoke.
Well, we'll figure out how to get that thing played. Too much money on the line there, especially at Fox.
Yes.
Here's what I can tell you. I got a text on Wednesday to bet the over in the third place match, and I did that. The only problem is, Mike, all those threes are long gone. It opened 3. 3 over, -130, -135. Every book is 3.5 now. So these guys just crushed over 3. I still kind of like it. You need 4 to win, obviously, but I'll tie on the 3. You'll lose on the 3.5. But serious money on the over in England and France, over 3, and now it's 3.5. You can get over 3.5 at plus money if you want.
I was going to ask you if that's a 90-minute bet, but it wouldn't matter if it were 3.
Correct. Yeah,
well,
it is a 90-minute bet plus the extra time, like the extra 5 minutes, not the 30 minutes.
Overtime. Yeah, I guess you could. One of the Argentina Swiss went 1-1 to 3-1 if you had a full-time wager, but this would only be the regulation time, so to speak. All right.
I had a guy real quick, Mike. I had a guy bet against Argentina 3 straight times. He did it with Cape Verde, he did it with Egypt, and he did it with England, and he lost all 3. He's like, it's like betting against Mahomes.
Yeah, a little bit messy. Very good. Thanks for your time, Sam. Enjoy the weekend.
All right, you too, man. See you.
Sam Panayotovich, Fox, Chicago. Formerly BetMGM, Chicken Dinner, although he might not still be completely detached from that. They just haven't put a show up in a while that I've seen. Mike Dempsey coming up at 4. This is Mike Schopp on WGR. Brian Cozio later on the Open. Right now, Bryson DeChambeau, who shot 66 and is alone second at -7, is back on the golf course with officials after somebody alerted the officials to a possible rules infraction. So they're all back out on the fifth, in the rough on the fifth hole, just hashing it out. Maybe he gets a penalty, maybe he doesn't, but the camera's been glued to this for like 10 minutes. Mike Dempsey next.
Sin so long, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. Oh, sing your high it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster.
Potentially a developing situation as day number 2 wraps up at Royal Birkdale for the British Open. Bryson DeChambeau, who has wrapped up his round, he does currently sit at 7 under par, good for second and lone second in the tournament, has been speaking with rules officials for the last couple of minutes over at hole 5. It does appear there may have been a rules infraction. We'll keep you up to date if anything does come of that, but DeChambeau does currently sit in second at 7 under, and Lucas Herbert sits alone at the top at 8 under. We'll talk with Brian Kozel at 5:30 for his thoughts on today and then the news heading into the weekend. To football, it is right around the corner. Seattle Seahawks rookies, they're reporting today for camp. San Francisco rookies will follow them tomorrow. While for the Bills, it's going to be reporting next Tuesday for the rookies. And speaking of them, along with the Sabres, each team will be getting new uniforms, or at least new alternate uniforms, according to Sabres COO and Bills president of business operations, Pete Gwelly, though no official date yet on when these new alternates will be released. Baseball is back underway. The Yankees do host the Dodgers tonight at 7:05, while at 7:15, the Jays, they have the White Sox in town, and then the Bisons, they also get back underway. They are on the road at Syracuse. First pitch for that one is at 6:35. And then this weekend, the final 2 games of the World Cup tomorrow. It's a third-place game between France and England at 5 p.m., and then Sunday at 3, the final between Spain and Argentina. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
It's Mike Schopp.
Name any word in less than a second. I will tell you how many letters are in it. But I cannot do anything mechanically. I don't even know how to put a game together for 3-year-olds.
And the Bulldog.
Fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.
DeChambeau is really hot. I bet they got him. Somebody called something in. A problem you and I as rec golfers do not have to deal with. Matt Collar and I were speaking the other day on his Purple Insider podcast, and he asked me, I mean, this is a guy, Matt, that I really like and have known a long time. He asked me, hey, just before you go, if I am not sure that ball is my ball, can I pick it up and look at it to make sure? Like, no. Unless you just want to play to have fun, which is most people, then fine, do whatever you want. Throw the ball down the fairway. But there's only two lanes here. Either you're playing by the rules to the best extent that you know them and mean to, or then you're just not. And he's like, well, okay, I want to play by the rules, although I will ground my club in bunkers. Like, ground your club in bunkers. You can't do what you think is right out there. Matt, you, everybody, do what you think is right. Mike Dempsey, with me now on the West Shore Hotline. You're a golfer, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about rules on the golf course? Are you a stickler? Are you casual? How do you go about it?
I mean, it depends on how everybody's playing, man. I'm not like, if you're playing in a tournament, you play by the rules. If everyone's, playing roll it in the fairway, as long as everybody's happy, man, I don't really care. You know what I mean? As far as like identifying your ball, how can you not identify your ball if it's in the rough? I'm not saying pick it up and flip it around, but you're allowed to tilt it to see if that's your logo or your mark on it, aren't you?
I don't know. I know there's one pro player that maybe it was during the U.S. Open, and his ball was all marked up with red and blue dots. One of the announcers said, it looks like he got his golf balls at Party City. And so I told Matt, if you need to, just draw a line on it or something like that. But it doesn't sound like you're playing that seriously to even have to worry about it. So,
yeah, I don't know. To each your own, man.
Right.
I'm not sweating, and I'm not making any money. I'm not gambling generally. So, and if I am, we're all playing under the same ground rules.
Thank you for joining me, Mike. Football Diehards 1010XL in Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I think you might agree, one of the more interesting teams in fantasy football this year and in football in general. There are just maybe more questions about, at least here on the outside, I think it would be true, about some of their skill position players than maybe any other team has, with the wide receivers and what the backfield breakdown will look like and other things. Has it been a fun team to talk about in that sort of context?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked it out. I mean, like training camp, please get here. But, yes, in terms of if you like a little bit of mystery. I mean, we were talking about it today. We did a little poll on the show today. Who's going to lead the team in receiving yards? And it ended up being Parker Washington who won the poll, which I tend to agree with on yards. But, I saw the reason I brought it up is because there was a post on one of the major sites today about ranking all the number 2 wide receivers. Might have been SI, I think, that had it. Each team's number 2 wide receiver. And they determined that Parker Washington is no better than the 3rd receiver on the team. Despite the fact that he led the team in receiving last year, they ranked Jacoby Myers as the number 2 on the team. In fantasy, I'd rather, it's kind of how you built your team. If you have a lot of high floor, high catch guys, I'm more willing to take the shot on Brian Thomas. And if you've got some of that volatility, if you've got like Jamison Williams and some of these other guys, maybe Christian Watson, what have you, then maybe you want Parker Washington for a little bit more stability. But I think those guys, not a whole lot separating them in terms of value this year.
So I guess in these polls, Thomas is considered the number 1.
As for that, they listed that Brian Thomas was the number 1, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, that's really here's the thing: if they didn't need him on defense, I think Travis Hunter is the most talented wide receiver they have on the team. So they really do have a good 4 deep. They just don't have like a top 2 like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But, in terms of spreading the ball around, which points to the value in fantasy on this team is Trevor Lawrence. That's the guy you want to have this year.
I like that idea. I've been in drafts where Brian Thomas Jr. and Parker Washington go literally one after the other.
I have as well.
Really, really interesting. So Washington, it sounds by how you're talking that Washington has, he's legitimate, that he showed enough, even if it was really just down the stretch last year where he came on. I mean, what was it that I heard the other night? 17 catches through 10 games or something like that. And then bam, down the stretch. And even in the playoff game, which he left and then went back into and caught a touchdown pass against the Bills. For you, is he like solid as a good NFL receiver?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've probably seen the stat going around that other than Puka Nacua, George Pickens, and Michael Wilson Jr., no player in the NFL, no receiver in the NFL had more contested catches. This guy's 5'10", right? But he's built like a tank, and he can high point the ball. He's excellent in the open field because he's a punt returner. On top of that, I absolutely think he's legit. I will not at all be surprised if we hear a contract extension announced before the Jags open training camp on July 29th.
How about Brian Thomas? So to what extent do you think an injury held him back last year, or was it more than that?
I think that's somewhat in there. I think it was just, excuses had kind of been made for him in the offseason, right? Like his rookie season. We don't quite see it yet. And then they had a joint practice with the Tampa Bay Bucks in training camp, and the Bucks players came away like, wow, you guys have something. And he hit some big plays that day, and then he was off to the races. Well, last year it was like, it doesn't matter. He's not starting fast because, remember, he did this in his rookie year. Well, he carried it into the season. He had a ton of drops. I mean, that really was it. The timing, the confidence, I don't know what it was between he and Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. And Liam Cohen's not playing around. This is a new team, and he's trying to set the tone. Well, it's completely changed this offseason. You will not find anyone who covers a team that doesn't think Brian Thomas was the positive story of the offseason to this point. His chemistry with Trevor looks phenomenal. He's catching everything thrown his way. So, sometimes guys, I don't know if he got a little complacent. I can't say that he did, but something was off last year. And, keep in mind, he had a really good friend from his college days pass away as well, and that could have affected him mentally last year. Again, I don't know him like that to say, but I've seen that speculation. I know this. He's the most talented receiver that they have, and if anyone's going to put together a monster season, he would be the one.
Interesting. And then there's Hunter. Well, I guess there's Myers next. Is there any reason to see him as anything other than what he's been over his career, which is good? I mean, it's useful. in fantasy, but, sort of a high floor option.
Yeah, that's probably what he is. I mean, he had a ton of targets. He led the team in targets when he came over. People I don't think would realize that, but he doesn't hit the explosive plays. But he is shorthanded. Trevor Lawrence trusts him. So, and where he goes, he's like kind of a mid to low end wide receiver 4. I mean, that's the thing. You're paying up a little bit for Thomas and Washington. And, Jacoby, you get at a discount, but he's the kind of guy that you don't want in your fantasy starting lineup on a regular basis, but in a pinch, yeah, he's fine. But, I think that pretty well describes him. Like, he is the guy we've always seen him be.
In a bye week situation, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, something like that, sure.
How about Hunter? No doubt everywhere you go in the media, somebody asks you a Travis Hunter question, like what to expect. As much of a dilemma as these other names might be, here's one where they say better in best ball, right? Maybe you get enough offense from him and there are spike weeks and you can sort of pay off the bet based on where you drafted him. But in a redraft league where you're setting lineups, what a headache.
Yeah, I took him, what was it, about 2 weeks ago. I took him with my 15th round selection in a redraft. Mm-hmm. And my thinking was, well, out of all the guys who are available, none of them are as talented as he is at that point. And who knows what happens in training camp. You might have an injury, So if you're drafting now, I think you take a late round flyer on Hunter. But I think if you get into training camp, it's going to become evident he's going to play defense full time or as close to full time as he can. And James Gladstone, the GM, kind of pointed to this in the offseason. He said, look at the depth chart. Where do you think we need him more this year? And it's pretty obvious. He slots in as their number one corner. And I do think he could be their number one receiver if they let him exclusively focus on that, but that's not going to be the case. So, look, he's too talented not to get the ball to. And he did the first OTA I went out to, and he's not 100% participating at that point because coming off the LCL injury, but he spent all his time exclusively on offense. So for people who don't think he's going to play offense, they're wrong, but I don't think the consistency is going to be there. Best ball, like you said, sure, take a shot on him. Still intriguing in Dynasty, but in a redraft situation, if you're drafting now, yes, because a lot can happen between now and September, but likely if you're drafting a week before the start of the season, he's going to be, just a fun guy to have on your team, but one of the first guys you're going to drop when you need to make a move because you got a couple of injuries.
Yeah, speaking of his talent, I'm looking at the last FFPC redraft league that I drafted, and he was a wide receiver picked after Jalen Naylor. So, take your chances. Maybe.
Right.
What happened last year, Mike? Wasn't there an injury in the secondary, maybe in training camp, and then he was sort of slotted to play more defense, or was that always the plan?
No, last year, Caleb Ransaw was their second draft pick, and he did get hurt in training camp, but he was going to play safety, not corner, and they had Tyson Campbell at that point in time, who they thought was their number one corner, and they had added Jordan Lewis. They had a few other young guys, so the need wasn't as great on defense, and you didn't have Jacoby Myers at the beginning of the year, so they thought it was going to be Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter as their top two guys. And it started to build towards that. If you remember when they played the Rams, a lot of it came in the second half, after they were getting beat, but they had 9 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown, and it felt like, okay, this is the point they're going to start featuring him. And then he got hurt with a non-contact injury in practice. And, that's the one thing people point to. Well, he's never going to stay healthy trying to play both ways. Well, he wasn't playing both ways. He was playing 2/3 on offense and 1/3 on defense, which made him a full-time player. But it wasn't like he got caught with an incredible workload or he was taking too many hits. It was just a fluke kind of thing. Guys don't generally tear their LCLs, but he did. He's already back running 22 miles an hour, and he's going to be fine health-wise, I think, barring a setback. And he's intriguing, but he might always be one of these guys that's just frustrating because the Jags do plan to use him on both sides, so maybe he's never going to get the chance to commit as much to offense as you'd like to see.
With Mike Dempsey, so you've mentioned already how bullish you might be on Lawrence this year. In fantasy drafts, right? In fantasy drafts, he goes in a pack of quarterbacks. Really, everybody's pretty cheap at that position in most drafts I've been in this year. Does Lawrence stand out for you as somebody that is,
that's too late is relative, right? Every draft is different, and some leagues that we're in just wait on the quarterback position forever. But, last year he finished as quarterback 4 in fantasy in terms of total points on the season, and he was really the top quarterback down the stretch from, say, week 12 on. I think he was number 1 in fantasy points. He was number 1 over Matt Stafford, averaging over 27 points a game during that stretch. And that's a stretch where Brian Thomas was struggling. They're acclimating to Jacoby Myers. They did not have Travis Hunter available to them. So I think the upside is tremendous with Trevor. I don't expect him to run for another 9 touchdowns, but put it this way, I'm very content. Now, you won't get this in Jacksonville, but up in Buffalo, let people take the Dak Prescotts of the world and all those other guys that are kind of bunched in there. And I think Trevor Lawrence can be every bit as effective. I'm not going to obviously draft him in the Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow range, but I think there's a chance that after those guys, and maybe Stafford, coming off an MVP season, that Trevor can push for top 5 fantasy relevancy at kind of a top 10 price.
It is interesting how there is a pretty big group of guys there, and it really is kind of a pick your flavor, whether that's Prescott. Jalen Hurts can go in the 9th round. Jaden Daniels even can go in the 9th round, and then you have
May,
Caleb Williams. Herbert is hot this year. Like, there are a lot of ways you can play it. I tend to just play it based on who my receivers are, and maybe I can find a stack there, which, Jacksonville is certainly playable in that way too. How about the running backs? Another really tough one around fantasy, Mike, to try to figure out what the plan is there.
Well, I think you have to assume that Basil Tootin will be most valuable. But will he be 5 rounds more valuable than Chris Rodriguez? It's tough to know. Basil Tootin in limited touches scored 7 times last year. People have asked, well, how do they replace Travis Etienne? Well, maybe Basil Tootin just doubles his output. That's very possible. But they only brought in 1 free agent of note this year, and that was Chris Rodriguez, and he has a familiarity with Liam Cohen, having played for him for a year at Kentucky. And, they said despite the productivity they got, when you look at some of the raw numbers, there was a stink in the running game. They couldn't run the ball down, let's say, the last 6 weeks when teams knew they wanted to on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, things like that. And Chris Rodriguez is brought in to do that. Well, where do you got a lot of 3rd and 1s? At the goal line, right? So if he becomes the primary goal line back, he's going to be a thorn in Tootin's side. I'll say this, like, Tootin's growing on me at the 5th round price. I wouldn't pay anything higher than that. But equally, if I miss out on him, I'll take a swing on Chris Rodriguez in round 10. And I think, you won't get the same upside, but you're not paying the same price. So I think if you're drafting in those kind of ranges, I'd ideally like to get Tootin in round 6, but it's becoming more and more difficult to do that. And I do think if there was one guy that was going to go for 1,200 yards and 10 or more touchdowns, it's overwhelmingly likely to be Basil Tootin.
I don't know that you and I talked after the playoff meeting between the Jaguars and the Bills, but I do remember watching it thinking, we're in trouble if they keep giving the ball to that guy. Like, Tootin had a couple
and they didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't give it to him in the second half at all.
I think the Bills were really lucky that they just, I don't know, they didn't really turn to him at all, like you said. So Bills got away with one there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. My co-host in Jacksonville, Tony Smith, he brought this up going a while back, and people are saying, if we could have we need more pass rush because we've gotten to Josh Allen one time. And Tony's point was, well, if somebody throws a block and Trevor Lawrence converts that 4th and 2, then it might be a moot point, and it's true, which kind of feeds into why they went with the tight ends in the draft and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Tootin, just to go back to your central point, 4 carries for 51 yards in that game, man. So that is the lasting impression I think he has left in people's minds, and that's why he's being coveted right now in fantasy.
Really interesting team, the Jaguars. Just in our last few minutes here, Mike, let's talk some more just general fantasy stuff. Almost every draft I'm in, and probably you as well, the top 5 names are the same. It's Gibbs and Robinson at 1 or 2, and then it's 3 receivers, Chase, Nakua, JSN. Who do you like at 106 in a vacuum?
I might like McCaffrey at 103.
Okay.
Honestly, I certainly like him at 106. Like is not a strong enough word. 106, because I've done a few of these, whether it's best ball or anything else, and I've tried going the JSN route given the choice, and I just don't like I like the options. I can get McCaffrey and like A.J. Brown. And a lot of times, sometimes you get that start of the second round running back run, and you're kind of stuck, and you're like, the best value is go wide receiver, wide receiver. Well, this year, that's becoming more and more problematic. I'm not one of these guys that's going to draft a bunch of backups and hope that two of them pop. I want at least to have my anchor running back in there. And look, man, if we knew McCaffrey was going to stay healthy, if we knew everyone was, and we don't know Gibbs and Bijan if they're going to stay healthy, we just don't. But if we knew McCaffrey was, I'd probably take him number one overall. I mean, it's the age that drops him down a little bit, but he has been a machine in point per reception leagues. I think he'll continue to be that. As it is now, I'd draft Gibbs number one slightly over Bijan, but I could steam McCaffrey up to 3 very easily.
That point, if you knew he was going to be healthy, we've been saying that for 7 years now, literally, right? Like, just his production is so off the charts. But maybe it's been to our benefit. He had that stretch earlier in his career where he got hurt a couple of times, and that scared some drafters away from him, maybe forever. But, I mean, last year, holy cow, 413 touches regular season alone at age 29?
Right. But he is healthy now. Like, there have been years where you're like, he's heading into camp, and he's expected to be healthy by the start of camp or the start of the season, and you're like, okay, and we kind of close our eyes to it, but he's posting insane workout videos. I don't know, man. I just I don't know if there's any particular reason. I get the whole workload thing, but we haven't seen the kind of workload that they're going to put on Jahmyr Gibbs this year. Does he hold up to it? We don't know. But again, we don't know anybody's going to be healthy, so I understand the inherent risk. And when you're drafting Chase or Puka or JSN, you're getting pretty much a sure thing at wide receiver. So I'm not faulting anybody who doesn't take him, or if they want to take Amon-Ra St. Brown over him at 6, fine. But I would take McCaffrey over Jonathan Taylor, Ashton Genty, or any other running back, James Cook, anybody being considered in the first round.
As you mentioned, Cook, how do you feel about the Bills guys? DJ Moore is the big wild card here this year, new to the team from the Bears. Presumably Josh Allen's wide receiver 1. It doesn't look like there's tons of love for him, even despite that. In drafts I'm in, he's like a 6th-round pick.
Good. I think he's a great value, man. I just don't get. I was never a Khalil Shakir drafter. I think we've talked about this before. I think DJ Moore is more talented, and I like it when teams go out and acquire a guy. They did it for a reason, right? I feel like they wanted to tilt the balance of that depth chart up in Buffalo. Now, you're a lot closer. You can correct me if I'm wrong on any of my misconceptions, but I think DJ Moore is a steal this year in fantasy drafts. And, you don't have to draft him as your number 1, but if I build my team out with some running backs early, maybe I draft an elite tight end, I can live with DJ Moore as my wide receiver 2 all day long.
What do you think, last thing, what do you think of the negativity toward him? So we had the excuse that he didn't have good quarterback play for much of his career, but this isn't that. I mean, his numbers dropped off in Chicago. He had some big games late, some big plays late. Does the counter argument to drafting DJ Moore make sense to you?
DJ Moore has played with a lot of hot garbage at quarterback at times over the years. Now, granted, it didn't work out, with Caleb Williams last year, but look, prior to that, he had 4 1,000-yard seasons, including a 1,300-yarder, another 966 in there in a 6-year span. Had 96 and 98 receptions. Luther Burden impacted things. Colston Loveland impacted things. I don't think DJ Moore forgot how to play in one off season. He's still on the right side of 30, although barely. I think DJ Moore is going to be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. I can't, the touchdowns are always a tough thing when Josh Allen and James Cook are hogging them, but he's never been a massive touchdown guy anyway. He's never had more than 8 in a season. You've only done that once. So if you're looking for 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, 80-plus catches, and I'll take that all day. If I'm, being patient, you can get DJ Moore just outside the top 24 wide receivers. I expect that kind of production out of him this year.
Very good. Always a pleasure to speak with you, Mike. Thanks for your time.
Likewise, brother. Anytime.
All right. Mike Dempsey, 1010 XL in Jacksonville and football diehards. You can hear him on satellite radio pretty much every weekend over there. How about you on DJ Moore? Are you buying it? 803-0550 if you want in. I'm pretty open here until Brian Koziol walks in at about 5:30. We'll recap day 2 of the Open Championship, and I'll try during this break here to find out more about what the DeChambeau controversy is all about. They had him out on the 5th hole for like an extra maybe 20 minutes going over what happened on that hole. Might have been one where somebody called in an infraction watching it on TV, and every time I look up, I'm watching the same highlight for like an hour of him, whatever he is accused of doing on that hole. So the latest on that still to come. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. Bills, Sabres, Connor Hellebuck. I'm open for what's on your mind here as we continue on WGR.
It is 9:30 p.m. across the pond over at Royal Birkdale as day 2 of the British Open is wrapping up, but plenty of drama still going on as lone second place Bryson DeChambeau. He does currently sit with 7 under par. He's only trailing Lucas Herbert, who has the sole lead at 8 under, but DeChambeau is being investigated for potentially improving his lie all the way back on hole number 5. He and the rules officials went back to the hole. They have left since. We have not gotten any update yet on if it will be a 2-stroke penalty for DeChambeau, but that is what he is facing currently. We'll hopefully keep you up to date on that as we get more information, and do stay tuned. We'll get more on day 2 of the Open and what is going to be going on this weekend, as Brian Koziel is going to join the show in just about an hour at 5:30. Football is right around the corner. The Seattle Seahawks, their rookies reporting to camp today. San Francisco is going to follow suit tomorrow, while for the Bills, their rookies are going to be reporting next Tuesday. And speaking of the Bills, both they and the Sabres are going to be getting new alternate uniforms. That according to Sabres COO and Bills president of business operations, Pete Gwelly, but to this point, no official date on when either will be released. And coming down in the last couple of minutes, the NFL has suspended Arizona Cardinals personnel executive Ryan Gold indefinitely for violating the league's gambling policy. It's Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Todd Lewis, do you have more on this?
Yeah, Bryce DeChambeau was frustrated when he walked out of scoring, and he said to his camp, they, being the rules officials, said, I improved my lie. And from what we understand, it's on the 5th hole, and he said he's going to show them that he did not. We believe he's going to jump in the cart and go back to the 5th hole to show where the possible incident or rules infraction took place. So this is still developing, guys.
You got to love golf for this, right? Or, I mean, you can roll your eyes and still love it. I mean, it is 9:30, as Zach said over there, and the coverage continues. I think it would be over otherwise. The guide says it was supposed to be Law and Order like an hour ago. They're not showing any golf. There might still be some. One thing that's interesting about this situation is, and Brian made this point with me on Wednesday, how probably because the days are so long there, like 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. sunlight, they don't, as opposed to what the U.S. Open does, put half the golfers on the back 9 first. They don't stagger it like that. So everybody plays 1 to 18. And so you get to whatever it was, 8 o'clock or 8:15, nobody's on 5 anymore. So they just go out there, and the officials and DeChambeau and his caddy and whoever else are just out there for maybe 20, 30 minutes talking it all out, trying to work out the situation. You got to love golf for this. DeChambeau is just right now coming in and out of the scorer's tent, media all around it, and they did ding him. They just changed the scoreboard. 2-stroke penalty. 2-strot penalty. 2-shot, 2-stroke. So he goes to 5 under, which is tied for 5th. After having been 7 under before all of this happened. You got to love golf for it. Like it's Watergate. One guy walking in the grass, does he stomp on the grass? Does he do something with his club that he's not allowed to do? I have not been able to follow this one that closely. But improve his lie somehow illegally. I guess you can never do that, right? In like a real tournament. You do it all the time. I know it. I've seen you play golf. You do it all the time. Just tap the ball ever so slightly. Maybe there's a tiny divot. Maybe there's a speck of dirt. Just, make sure it's fluffed up. I mean, you got security. You've got fans roped off. There's the officials with walkie-talkies. And it's like somebody just broke into something, trying to figure out whether DeChambeau deserves a 2-stroke penalty. Well, he got one. So definitely a topic for Brian, who will know all about the situation and what the rules are and how they were enforced here. This is maybe one of those where you or I are watching the broadcast and notice it, and who are you supposed to know to call when you do that? How does this happen where the people that have this, the players that have this happen to them, when somebody watching the Open calls in, like if that's you, who are you calling? Brian? Maybe Brian would be my call. Maybe Brian would know the number to like the Golf Channel or something. Like who? Is it still even a phone call? Is it maybe, can you go online? If the whole thing had been, maybe it did, played out on Twitter or something, then perhaps that's enough for it to gain visibility and tournament officials find out that there's all this enthusiasm for whether a rule was broken. Also, you have, now DeChambeau just comes out and they want an interview and he says no. I don't think DeChambeau is doing interviews anyway. They were talking about that on the broadcast today, that instead, maybe not every round, but instead of going to the interview room, which of course today they would want him to do, he goes to his YouTube channel and talks about his round on his YouTube channel. So maybe they'll try to make him after this one, but I don't think they can. So we'll see if he talks. But yeah, I don't know who to call. If I see something, I probably won't even notice it, but if I did, who would I call? Would I call Brian? Would I call like a local news station? I wouldn't know how to call the well, maybe that's something you could figure out how to do. Call Royal Birkdale. Yes, hi. Big fan. Just wanted to point out something I saw. Is there somebody like there who is working for that purpose? Is somebody's job at any of these places, Golf Channel, the golf course itself, is that their job to field calls from viewers who think they've seen something illegal? Anyway, interesting. Golf is unique for this. Can you think of anything like it in another sport where the game is over, the round is complete, it's all over, and then somehow out here we can influence? No, I can't think of anything like it in another sport. I'm actually sort of racking my brain trying to come up with comparisons, and I thought of the Pine Tar game. Has the show ever sounded older than a reference to the Pine Tar game? 1981, early 80s, Royals-Yankees, George Brett hits the winning homer off the, maybe Gossage, maybe not, off the Yankees to sort of win the game for the Royals. And Billy Martin, the Yankee manager, comes out after Brett has rounded the bases and they're celebrating. Tim McClellan is the umpire, the home plate umpire, and Martin wants to get Brett on the Pine Tar. So they go and get his bat, and everybody kind of looks like they have no idea what's happening. They go and get his bat. They lay it on the field in front of home plate to measure it, because they would know how, I don't know the number, how many inches across home plate is, and maybe the Pine Tar went past the edge of home plate or something, so they knew it was illegal. Kind of a cockamamie rule, but it's a rule. So they call Brett out. You've seen the tirade. He just storms out of the dugout, arms flailing, gets right in McClellan's face. You have a whole big scene, and that might have been the last out. Like that, 2 outs in the ninth, that might have been the last out of the game. So then there's a whole process where the Royals file an appeal, maybe it would be, and they win. And the home run is overturned. So it's a school day, as I remember it, the day that they resume the game between the Royals and the Yankees, the bottom of the ninth with Kansas City in the lead. And no, I think maybe they had to get, no, of course, because the home run, the Yankees still had to get the third out. And Martin put players at all different weird positions. Like he was just sort of totally and still in a protest mood about it. Resentful that they had to go back and finish this. So one afternoon, they go back. It's now maybe 5-4 Kansas City, 2 outs, top of the ninth. The Yankees get the third out. And I think this would have been before the third out, too. Martin has the pitcher appeal to every base, challenging that Brett didn't step on the bases. And I think he was basically like, well, how do you know if he did or didn't? I mean, it was months ago. So that was a charade, and Yankees go down and lose. Pine Tar. Uncle Mike with the Pine Tar story today. Hopefully most of it was accurate, just from memory. 803-0550 for your calls. Confirmation of a new alternate Bills uniform today from Bills and Sabres boss Pete Goelli. That's been all the speculation for a long time, if not like the knowledge that there would be another Bills uniform, one we haven't seen before. The one that people that I follow that are really into uniform stuff all seem to think is the one is gray. Jersey and pants, gray, with blue numbers maybe or white numbers. And that's a tough one. We'll see. I am not always, in my defense, I'm not always like a curmudgeon when it comes to uniforms. In fact, I think in sports, knock yourself out. Wear different uniforms all the time. Be like Baylor. Wear a different, Oregon, different uniform every week. You know, it's different and interesting. And I'm not, as much as I like a team like, say, the Canadians, who have had the same uniform for like a century, mostly, as much as I can appreciate that, I also think, you know, it's kind of fun for fans, and it's not that I'm here for this reason, but for teams to make a little money, like new stuff. I mean, I think they can get pretty ugly. That's just, you know, simple taste, right? So I'm not sure I'm going to dig all gray, but I did like the white ones last year. The Winter Soldier look by the Bills. I went to that game, and I thought that was pretty hot or cold, but it was also it's not winter yet when they wore that. It was like week 4, week 5 against New England. I like that uniform. I'm not sure. Detroit has an all gray uniform. You've seen them wear maybe on Thanksgiving. And to me, like, sure, it's perfectly conceivable that the Lions could have an interesting and cool alternate uniform. All gray for me isn't it. Let's hope we don't get our wires crossed and both teams wear all gray on that opener, that home opener against the Lions. I'm pretty sure that won't happen, but we'll see how it goes over when it comes out. And I have no idea what to expect on a Sabres one. Hopefully not all gray. If it's not too soon, or if not too late to weigh in. So that was made official today. If you want to talk about the Bills or the Sabres, I am here for it. I've been doing a lot of it this week without Bulldog here, and I would be even if he were here, of course. That'll be next week. Connor Hellebuck is a big topic. Are you open to it? Have you changed your mind on it? Do you think it's impossible or unrealistic or just what at this point? And with the Bills, the overall vibes, the DJ Moore acquisition, and lots of other topics have come up, including this uniform stuff today over the course of the week. 803-0550 if you want in. This is Mike Schopp, back after this time out here on WGR. Baseball tonight, Pittsburgh, Cleveland postponed because of the smoke. Really interesting and difficult few days here. Try to respect and appreciate the magnitude, the severity of it all, which, yes, our air quality is said to be seriously bad. You can easily tell the difference stepping outside. I know that I've got my kids are in different tournaments in different parts of the Northeast, and we're watching to see like what happens to one of them, depending on what the air is like eastern part of the state this weekend. I saw today how it might or is expected to continue off and on into or even through next week. And at one point, one map I saw had, because of wind changes, the smoke in the air drifting to the south, like the deep south of the U.S. So it's certainly not the end of it, even though today was a little bit brighter. I live right across from where I can see the Niagara Falls, Ontario skyline, and it's been 3 days. I haven't seen it in 3 days. Like, it's, even though it's brighter and the sun was out somewhat last night, I still can't see the buildings across the river like I'm used to. We're talking about uniform stuff last segment with the Bills confirming that they were going to have a new jersey, a new uniform this year. I saw a tweet from one of a few accounts that I follow that I just kind of like these. That's like almost really uniform trivia in sports and any sort of announcements about changes. I know a lot of maybe the Bills are a little bit behind just in terms of whether they're going to announce their uniforms for the whole season. Teams are doing that now. I know that Houston is going all white for the opener against the Bills. So like you have on some of these accounts, you have graphics that the teams distribute where they have every week's uniform plan for the entire season. And another tweet that I saw from one of these accounts this week was about the old Washington helmet. So before they changed their name, and how in one season, 1982, that was a strike year as it happens, and they also won the Super Bowl that year, John Riggins. They had a different helmet just for 1 year. I think I read because an equipment manager just liked it more or wanted to change it. Like maybe the person went rogue or something. I don't know. But for 1 year, 1982, if you watch any old highlights like I do all the time, and today I went looking for this and confirmed it, they had a different helmet design, and apparently it's known as the tucked feather. So if you can picture the old Washington helmet, there's a circle with the profile in it, and then there's a feather or two that hang down from the side of the circle. And in 1 year, 1982, instead, the feather is tucked underneath the circle. Apparently because somebody in charge of all this just liked it more. So I went and watched a little bit of Super Bowl 17 to see if that's correct, and it is. The tucked feather. And then the next year they went back, and then the feather returned to being, untucked, hanging down. So I have this helmet collection, and my mind started racing like, oh, I have no idea if the 1982 Super Bowl MVP, John Riggins, if my Riggins helmet is like authentic to the season. It's not. Probably because you can only buy so many different types of helmets, and maybe it's just like so trivial a thing that people don't even know about it. But now I want a Riggins with the tucked feather. Does that exist? I never knew until this week that Washington had a different helmet design just for one season. If you go and watch the next year's Super Bowl, which they were also in against the Raiders, they got crushed. They are wearing the earlier helmets where the feather hangs down. Now you have something to talk about this weekend with your friends. Tucked feather trivia. I got to find a Riggins. My favorite story about my helmets is the Namath story. When I was collecting these helmets, I wanted all of them for each Super Bowl MVP to have that inscription on it that says Super Bowl whatever MVP. But somebody told me that Namath wouldn't sign that on his Jet helmet because he thought of it as a team award. So you won't find a Super Bowl III MVP Joe Namath helmet. I'm like, okay. And one day I went into Dave & Adams, and I noticed a Jet-looking helmet way out there in the case and I went over to it, and it's meant to look like the Jet helmet, but instead it's like a Joe Namath logo. Broadway Joe is the logo instead of it saying Jets. And there it is, Joe Namath, Super Bowl III MVP. Apparently he'll sign that. It's a team award, but apparently he'll sign it on his own helmets. I don't know. I'm Mike Schopp. We'll be right back.
We do have confirmation. Bryson DeChambeau, after wrapping up his round today, has been assessed a 2-stroke penalty. He now goes from 7 under to 5 under on the tournament after it was shown that he improved his lie on the 5th hole. He is now tied for 3rd, again at 5 under par, while Lucas Herbert leads the way at 8 under. We'll get more on all of this. Brian Koziol going to join the show in just about a half hour at 5:30. To football, it is right around the corner. Seattle Seahawks, their rookies are reporting to camp today. San Francisco rookies are going to do so tomorrow, while Bills rookies, they're going to report next Tuesday. And speaking of the Bills, both they and the Sabres will be getting new alternate uniforms. That according to Sabres COO and Bills President of Business Operations, Pete Gwelly. But to this point, no official date on when they will be released has been, released. Staying with the NFL has suspended Arizona Cardinals Director of College Scouting Ryan Gold indefinitely for violating the league's gambling policy. And baseball is back underway. The Yankees do host the Dodgers at 7:05. While at 7:15, the Jays, they have the White Sox in town. And the Bisons, they also get underway. They're on the road at Syracuse with first pitch for that one at 6:35. Then over the weekend, we've got the final 2 games of the World Cup. Tomorrow, it's the 3rd-place game between France and England at 5 p.m., and then Sunday at 3, the final between Spain and Argentina. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I don't think that's a very good attitude.
It's Mike Schopp.
You don't think? You don't think? But I don't think you should be butting in when I'm talking to my team. You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box. You know who you're talking to.
It's the Bulldog.
I'm talking to the juice box guy. You're crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just thirsty. Why don't you go to hell? No, you go to hell. While you're there, why don't you grab me a juice box? I'm no juice box boy, I'll tell you that. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you
it's
are.
Mike
I'm not. Yes, you
and
are.
the Bulldog on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Even though it's 10 o'clock at night there, Bryson DeChambeau is on the range. And the current speculation is whether or not he's just going to withdraw out of protest for having been given this 2-stroke penalty. I turned it to Golf Channel. Finally, USA got done and went its regular, normal way over to the 17,000th episode of Law & Order. Golf Channel all over this scandalous situation with DeChambeau. It doesn't hurt that he's kind of a villain already. Not even kind of. Some of the Twitter speculation is that somebody, went and got him because of who he is for this. But on the Golf Channel graphic, it says inadvertently improving the area of his intended swing. They're saying, whether that's an official designation or their own, that he didn't mean to do it. And if his problem is maybe thinking he's being called a cheater, well, if he didn't mean to do it, either way, now they're talking about whether he'll even show up for the 3rd round at the Open. It would have been, I think maybe most people would say this, I don't know any better, if he's playing in the final group with Herbert. Is that the guy's name? Lucas Herbert?
Lucas Herbert, yep.
Lucas Herbert, who I don't know anything about. If he's playing in the final group with Lucas Herbert, he's a big presence. And maybe that's a intimidation factor in his advantage especially against somebody that hasn't ever won one of these, or maybe even come close to doing that. Instead, he plays back a few groups, if he plays at all, and Herbert, it seems, will play with maybe Cameron Young, or Ryan Gerard, or Jackson Suber, or somebody that's not Bryson DeChambeau. I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening. Brian Koziol with more on the golf coming up in 25 minutes. Me and you for now. If you have a thought on something I've been talking about throughout the week with the Sabres in mind, that's definitely still the Connor Hellebuyck speculation. Would love to know from more fans whether you're hoping to wake up in the morning someday and hearing that they've traded for Connor Hellebuyck, or maybe instead you're hoping to wake up in the morning someday in the near future and hearing that Connor Hellebuck has been traded to New Jersey or San Jose or somewhere else to, as you might put it, if that's how you feel, save the Sabres from themselves. 803-0550 on that. My favorite Bills thing right now, tying in with some fantasy stuff as we get closer to draft season, or, maybe it's always draft season if you're like me, is DJ Moore. And one thing I like about Mike Dempsey, I've said this about him before, and I mean it as a compliment, is I never know what I'm going to get from a question that I put to him. As opposed to as bright and knowledgeable as so many fantasy players and analysts are, there's an echo chamber. And I think I kind of have to be careful with Mike, because I tend to sometimes, in the course of a question, maybe assume an answer, which is not good technique. But with Mike, like, what do you think, DJ Moore? He's like, I love him. And I was not expecting that, because I don't expect that from anybody. In fact, in other conversations, maybe Rich Rebar yesterday, I might have, in the course of the question, maybe prefaced it with, well, I don't see anybody really liking DJ Moore in these drafts. And, Rich or whoever else might sort of come back with something of the same kind, there's A, B, and C issues, whether that's his numbers last year or his age or some sort of intangible point that, people might use as an excuse for not liking him, or as even just the reason. And I have tried to figure this out here this week, and I have just not, especially after talking to Mike, he made it tougher for me. I can't figure out where I want to be on this guy. I've just heard and had a couple times my own sort of questions about him, and there are just there's one or two notorious plays or situations maybe with Moore. The one, and this is not, I think this maybe just is flat out unfair. I mean, I wouldn't want to be judged by my worst day, everybody has a bad moment. And sometimes when you're talking about wide receivers, if they act up, sometimes you can kind of sympathize with them. Like what Jefferson, so having said that, last year we go into the season and Justin Jefferson is maybe almost everybody's number one wide receiver in the NFL. And in terms of fantasy football, he seemed quarterback proof. Kirk Cousins, fine. Not everybody's favorite, but there's tons of volume. And if Kirk Cousins, as long as he's upright, is your quarterback, the numbers should be there. That's what the Bills ran into when they saw Jefferson last 4 years ago in that insane game out at the stadium. This year is the next time they play them. It'll be in Minnesota. Cousins is long gone, but still. So Kirk Cousins, fine, but Nick Mullins and Joshua Dobbs and maybe someone else, they went in and out. Well, Darnold eventually in 2024, and that was a big season. Jefferson, some guys like DJ Moore, I mean, maybe quintessentially, what you talk about is whether they are a victim of circumstance. All right, well, they're good, but would they be great if they had a better situation? Either whatever that is, play caller, quarterback would be number one, whatever that is, even like weather. Do they play in a dome or not? If this guy played indoors, he'd be this much better rather than playing in Cleveland. Whatever. There are guys where you have to ask these questions like DJ Moore is over his entire career so far. Jefferson was somebody that seemed immune to that. He graduated to a point where nobody asked those questions because he always delivered. Then last year comes along, Darnold leaves for Seattle. J.J. McCarthy, after a redshirt year because of a knee injury, finally gets to play in the league. And in week one at the Bears, McCarthy is seen saying to Jefferson on the sideline, man, don't give up on me. It's already bad by week one. And as it happens, we found out that Justin Jefferson is not necessarily quarterback proof, We found a quarterback who could not get the ball to him, and he cracked. I mean, he wasn't out of control, but he was not subtle about how he felt about that. And you don't have to blame him for that. I mean, like I said, sometimes it makes sense how receivers feel, and they're demonstrative, and that means we all find out. That happens. Maybe that's not for the best, but it kind of makes sense sometimes. If you're a great wide receiver on a team where they can't get the ball to you because the scheme is inept and the quarterback can't throw, well, then you might have a right to be ticked off. So Jefferson, even he was not immune to bad quarterback play, and it showed in how he acted. And, he didn't have a terrible season, but he didn't have a Justin Jefferson season. And so now it's Kyler Murray, and for the record, Mike said, I think it was Mike today, said or even Sammy P. I think it was Sam, because he brought up Jefferson as an awards bet idea. He's like, I could see Murray, whatever he said, like he was open to Kyler Murray clicking there. And I am too, but I want to be careful because Murray is somebody, especially when it's Bulldog and me and Bulldog hates him, where I can be maybe more of an apologist. And it should not be ignored, sort of the controversy around him and his work habits over the last few years with Arizona. So that'll be an interesting one. How about DJ Moore, though? Like, really, this is one where, if you will, selfishly, we'd all like to see the Bills find their way back to a wide receiver who's really it. Shakir is fine. He's not it. He's not somebody that scares defenses. He's not somebody that really is much of a game changer. He keeps the offense going, and there's value in that, and he can break a big run after a catch play, but he's not, one of these elite guys. I think we could all safely say that. I mean, I don't know if Moore is exactly elite, but is he good enough so that we all shut up on the Bills' continuing failure to bring in a quality number one wideout? Joshua Palmer's name came up yesterday, and this used to be Curtis Samuel for me, and now it's become Joshua Palmer, where maybe Rich Rebar mentioned him. I'm like, oh yeah. I don't know what that is. I think about Coleman, because Coleman is so controversial as a pick, and like whether or not he's ever going to make it, before I think about Palmer, but that might not be the right order. 803-0550 for you. What about DJ Moore? What's job one? Job one is, whether we like their receivers or not, winning games, including playoff games, which, might be easier to win if you had a wide receiver one on the roster, unlike last year, where we know how it ended, right? Brandon Cooks, Mecole Hardman. You're just sort of hoping that somebody on your team can deliver for you in those big moments. But so the big thing here is, will they keep winning? And, I mean, people are not expecting a drop-off from the Bills, but will Moore be somebody that just makes them more believable? Not that it's been too far away from this, but more believable as a team that can win it all. Now we're watching games, and this guy looks like he's that player where game is on the line, third down, the ball is going to DJ Moore, they know it, and he's still going to get it done. And that's what Diggs was. This team wins so much that they're not always in these kind of situations where they need a play at the end. It's happened in the playoffs, and they didn't get it in the Kansas City loss here. They didn't get it in the AFC Championship there when the pass went to Kincaid. They didn't get it in Denver. So that's what I think DJ Moore represents. I mean, in terms of fantasy and just sort of the overall, we'll look at him and see, like, well, what kind of numbers are there? And does his presence make the Bills more dangerous or more dangerous looking? In the end, it's going to be like, this is where I'll always end up with them. And for me, it makes it challenging to sort of hammer at whether it's wide receiver or something else where they really need to be pass rush, where they really need to be better. It's about those few plays in those big games in the playoffs. Do you have what you need? And then, if you do, you're less likely, for one thing, to lose on what you think is a bad call. You're just the better team. And for one reason or another, they have not been able to get that done, mostly against Kansas City, but also Cincinnati, and now Denver is on that list too. So just waiting around for January to see if on that particular play, DJ Moore is open and the Bills hit the play, it's a long way off. A lot's going to happen between now and then. That, I think, of course, it's not only why you do anything is for the playoffs. They can't be that greedy, thinking that it's just automatic that they'll make it. But really, ultimately, that's what you hope you have in the end is this is a player that you can lean on in the big ones. And really, in fairness to him, he really hasn't had that opportunity very often. Last year, is that the first time he's ever in the playoffs? I don't know. Like last year with the Bears, they got in, they won a game, then they had that Ram game that went to overtime, and I think it would have been the Bears' last play on offense of the season is a pass to DJ Moore, who has people scratching their heads about what kind of route he was running there. And not everybody was ready to blame him for it, but plenty of people did. So who knows? It's a big price that the Bills paid for him. I just like having Mike Dempsey be somebody, as he always is, who kind of surprises me sometimes with his takes. And I say that out of respect. Mike plays a lot. I'm in one league with him, and he dominates it. So I'm not here to say that he doesn't have it right. It's just cool that somebody is going to – Moore is somebody ADP chasing, the stuff I do, where everybody's in a big hurry to sort of condescend to him. Oh, who would want DJ Moore when you can have Carnell Tate or Jamison Williams or somebody like that who kind of go around in the same range? Fantasy is coming. The one, I was thinking about it, how all right, because I have to sort of remind myself with all the drafts I do kind of in the spring that, all right, this is Matthew Collar reminded me of this the other day. No, Mike, this is the time. Oh yeah, okay, good. Of course it is. Right now is a little bit early for drafts, but what it isn't early for is people needing to make decisions in keeper leagues where you have to decide, usually they work like this. Do I want to keep player X for a 5th round pick or player Y for a 10th round pick? And that can make for some interesting dilemmas. The guy in the 5th round is probably better, but it's more costly. So this would be the time of year for that. I'm not in a single one of those leagues. I'm not in a single keeper league where I have to decide who to keep and who to cut, 1v1. I'm in dynasty stuff where I've got to cut 5 or 6 guys by Labor Day, and that's not easy always to do. I have plenty of those, but not where I have to decide between, do I want to keep Mike Evans for a 5th round pick or, Dak Prescott for a 9th or whatever that might be. So if you had a question like that, I could try to answer it, but I'm not answering it from really any personal experience. It also occurred to me thinking about this earlier that in the past, a couple of different times on the air, I might just sort of say, if anybody's got an opening out there, let me know, because I may be looking for a new one. And right now, I am not in the market because I've already got about as much as I can handle, knowing that in the past I've overdone it, and I want to be careful about that, just sort of going in blind in a new league with mostly probably people that I don't know. And this is going to sound like I'm making excuses. Maybe it's because I am. But a couple of times I have done that and just not had any success because I feel like everybody in the league already knows each other and has an idea sort of like who's easy to work with, friends making trades. Some leagues are pretty loose. Some leagues are so loose, and I would not want to be in a league like this, especially if I didn't know all the people where deals are made under the table. I had a guy tell me once in his league that, if we can't make a deal, that's one thing, but maybe I can buy you a pizza to sweeten the offer. I'm not playing in any league where pizza is going to be a factor in whether we're making this trade. Sorry. It's a nice idea. I love pizza, but I can't do that. So I've gotten, a big head, and to be like, yeah, if you got a league, got an opening, let me know. Bring it on. So a couple times in specific, I'm thinking of a couple times. One, I was pumped up. I'm like, oh, I can play with anybody. So how about it? And somebody reached out to me and they said, well, I've got a team if you want it. You said you wanted one. This is a pretty heavy lift. Dynasty. This is a pretty heavy lift. So, take a look and let me know. I took a look and I was terrified. I thought, like, this is going to be really hard. But I did say I would do it. And so I'm going to do it. And that league has been terrible on me. Like, I just cannot. I've had some bad luck, but just, again, I'm walking into a group where I don't know anybody, and I have not had an easy time at all, but I don't really want to be a quitter, especially when I haven't been able to win anything yet, but maybe that's what you should do. That's a tough one for me too. I have friends, people that have been guests on the show that I play with. We had one example of this last year when Bulldog and I were talking and like, oh, I'm so jealous of this guy because he quit this league I'm in, and I would so love to do it. And Chris is like, well, why don't you? Well, it just doesn't feel right. But you're throwing your money away by knowingly betting on a losing proposition. I mean, if you want to quit, just quit. But it's a bad look. It means I failed. I drafted this team or I bought this team and I got nowhere with it, and now I'm just going to quit? What a loser. Well, how much does it cost? $200 a year. Enjoy that. Enjoy your donation. So just a couple of times, another one I'm thinking of where I, again, like, anybody got one? And somebody did. And it ended up being really good players. So sometimes you draft in these things and somebody will pick Josh Allen at like the first round. Like, okay, well, I'm going to be fine here. If they're picking a quarterback in the first round, I don't really think I have anything to worry about. Not that I'll win, but I won't get, crushed in a league like that. But this one was, everybody was super sharp, including a couple people I know, and not a dynasty league, but a new draft every year that always seemed to come at the wrong time for me, like on a camping trip or something. And eventually I said, after a couple of years, I just bowed out of that. So I have bad luck or have had no success or little success when throwing out the call, let me know if you have a spot. I've not done well. So I am not doing that this time. I'll stick with what I've got. I'll lose on my own. I'll lose over here by myself rather than making it worse for myself, probably, with a new league. But it is coming upon that time of year. We still have a lull here between much happening other than some practices with the Bills by a week or so away from now. And so time to get in the mood, get lined up, get prepped for fantasy drafts. After the next update, Brian Koziol will join me. We've been doing these kind of segments with Brian every major championship for years. Today, we've got the added intrigue and maybe controversy, I think it's definitely that, with Bryson DeChambeau and this 2-stroke penalty that he got long after his round was over. And after a big argument out on the golf course, they all went back out there with the officials, and he looks like he's just, losing his mind over this ruling. And the speculation continues to be tonight, it's tonight over there, that he might not even play the weekend because he was so frustrated with the decision that was made. So we'll see what Brian can add to all of that and everything else from the Open Championship, 36 holes in at Royal Birkdale. Bulldog back with me on Monday. This is Mike Schopp. Thanks for listening to the golf tournament with Brian Koziol next here on WGR.
Day 2 of the British Open is done. The drama is not, as Bryson DeChambeau goes from lone second with a 7-under tournament to 5-under after a 2-stroke penalty for improving his lie on hole number 5. He is now tied for third. Lucas Herbert is alone and the lead at 8-under. But again, the big story, Bryson DeChambeau, that 2-stroke penalty. We'll get more on all of this and what is going to be going into the weekend. Brian Koziel going to join the show next, so do stay tuned for that. Over in football, it is right around the corner. Seattle Seahawks rookies, they're reporting to training camp today. San Fran rookies are going to follow suit tomorrow. And then Bills rookies, they're going to report next Tuesday. Staying with the NFL, Arizona Cardinals Director of College Scouting, Ryan Gold, he was indefinitely suspended today for violating the league's gambling policy. And then for this weekend, we've got the final 2 World Cup games. Tomorrow, it's the third-place game between France and England at 5 p.m., and then Sunday at 3, the final between Spain and Argentina. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet with you for the extra mile since 1935. I'm Zach Jones for Western New York's Voice of the Fan, WGR.
As Terry said, the computer changed, and now the scoreboard leaderboards that are adjacent to the 18th fairway have changed as well. Bryson DeChambeau has received a 2-shot penalty on the 5th hole earlier today. That 5 becomes a 7.
With me now on the Western Hotline, Brian Koziel, Tee to Green, Saturday mornings. DeChambeau is just off the range at what would be 10:30 local time. Fans still there watching him hit balls. He just wrapped up, gave his glove to an attendant who was manning that scorer's tent throughout the day, maybe like apologizing to him for keeping him up so late. I don't know. Might sound like maybe Brian and I talked hours ago and this is a recorded segment. No, it's dark there, 10:30 at night, and he just got off the range. Let's get Brian in here for your interpretation of what happened today. So, Brian, what happened here?
Well, yeah, I was excited to talk about 2 guys that shot 62, but we're not. We're talking about...
We'll see if we get there.
Yeah, Bryson and his drama. So anyway, for those that didn't see what happened, on the 5th hole, Bryson DeChambeau hits his drive into the tall fescue area to the right of the green. It's a shorter hole. It was only playing 328, so he was trying to drive it. And a good hole for some good drama, and ultimately it led to that. So he's about 50 yards, I'd say, maybe 40 or 50 yards short of the green in the fescue on the right. And he goes in and assesses his lie. And there's obviously, as we all know, there's spotters that are there, volunteers. They say, hey, we got your ball. He comes over, says, oh, I got it. Thank you very much. The spotters walk away. He and his caddy assess the lie. They hit it. He hacks it out, goes onto the green, or toward the edge of the green. He makes one more chip and then ends up making a putt on that hole, just missing it for both, so he makes a bogey. What happened is he plays through. He goes into sign his scorecard, and they said, hey, we have some video from the 5th hole we'd like to talk with you about. We think that you may have, whether on purpose or inadvertently, improved your swing path in terms of all that fescue grass. So he watched the video. They're going to assess him a 2-stroke penalty. He obviously was very upset about it, protested. They actually were in there for 17 minutes. Then he went back. They actually went back out and essentially reenacted it all out there in the fescue. He actually had a club. He was swinging. They had 2 rules officials from the RNA there, him and his caddy, and he keeps showing. And he's very, very animated throughout this whole thing. Like, obviously, he knows maybe there's a 2-stroke penalty coming. Very upset. The video showed that he walked behind the ball to kind of assess what angle to take. When he did so, he definitely stepped on some fescue grass. And then when he approached the ball back to get ready to hit it, he stepped on some more. Ultimately, when you're hitting a shot like that, you want to be really, really steep and vertical with your shot. You don't want to be shallow because otherwise you're going to catch all this grass. So it looks like maybe... and he hits this out that, could there have been more fescue grass in his way and impeding his shot? But there wasn't as much because he had stepped on it. Ultimately, did he do it intentionally? Did he not? Some players are saying yes. I mean, some of these analysts are saying yes. Some are saying no. But ultimately, some of them are saying it doesn't matter because whether he did it on purpose or inadvertently, it improved the area of his intended swing. And that's the ruling that they're going with. He's upset about it. He didn't want to talk to the media. Then there was the video showing him saying, I may not play tomorrow to the RNA. Then asked on his way out, the media asked his agent. His agent said he'll decide in the morning. So there's a whole other layer with this. We know Bryson has a lot of drama going with him. The fact that he's not talking to the media and not explaining his side of things on this adds another layer, I guess. But that's kind of, I made a short version, a long version, but that's kind of what it's at. So he goes from -7 in the final group with Herbert down now to a tie for fifth and -5 with that 2-stroke penalty on that fifth hole. And now maybe we wait to see if he's even going to play tomorrow or not. That obviously is still in question, which to me, I would never advise him to just walk away. I feel like that seems like a very poor decision if he ends up doing that, even if he totally disagrees with this ruling.
Very good, Brian. So ultimately, it sounds like, and it looked like, from what I could tell, the argument was that, when I'm watching it, it's almost like he's stomping around the area where the ball is, as if you could look at that and think he's really trying to mat down the grass. But maybe DeChambeau is saying, well, what do you want me to do? I mean, I'm walking over here. I've got to walk here to play the shot. So I think maybe that's a pretty subjective thing, where I could see this one being hotly contested, where you're like, what am I supposed to do here? I'm not allowed to take steps. If the grass is going to lay down after I step on it, how is that a penalty? And, in my opinion, when you see him arrive at the ball in the morning or whenever, like during his round, he is like stomping on the grass, not looking down at it, but it didn't look completely, honest to me.
I think that's fair. I upon watching this video now a whole bunch of times, he's not being 100% careful in terms of how he's walking around in that area. And I think Smiley Kaufman from Golf Channel reenacted the whole thing a couple of times. I think if anybody's able to watch that at some point, that video is great. I think he explained it well. He said, look, while you can walk in the fescue to try to figure out, the kind of shot you have, you also have to make sure that you're not doing anything that is changing what it would be your intended swing. Now, again, by you walking around, I guess officially it could happen. But I do agree with you in that sense. He did not walk gingerly. So if there was the thought of he's trying to do something and maybe get away with it, I can see why the video would show that.
Yeah. And it's this player. I mean, he comes with a reputation. Right. Do we know how it was found out, like where the source of the video or just the question of his behavior came from?
I haven't heard that yet. All I just heard is that the RNA approached him afterwards and said, "Hey, don't sign your scorecard. We've obtained some video that we'd like to go over with you from the fifth hole." So okay. I don't know if it was from a viewer or from, obviously there's rules officials that are watching all the different TV coverages from all around the world to see, as they're watching, but I don't know ultimately where they obtained it from. And you're right. It's being Bryson, this adds a whole layer.
Yeah.
If other players, even if they 100% disagreed, probably would have just taken the high road out and just said, okay, I disagree, but, here I am signing my card. Bryson went out there and was kind of really trying to argue his case. And, some people might say, good, like if he thinks he didn't do anything wrong, he should argue his case. I can listen to that, I guess. But because of DeChambeau and all that goes with him, this is definitely a bigger story than if it was even Lucas Herbert who did it,
Right.
Yeah.
Brian Koziel, my guest, tee to green tomorrow morning. Wonder if you'll get to the guys who shot 62 tomorrow morning. You have an hour or two, so you probably will get to that. DeChambeau was a big story already. He had missed the cut in the 3 previous majors this year, but out here on a course that's not supposed to be suited for a player like him. I heard he hit 4 fairways yesterday. It's supposed to be a course where you have to hit it straight. This guy's all over the place, but he's so long, and he putted great. Short game looked good, and here he is in second, or at least for a while. Now he's back to certainly not out of it. 3 strokes. If he's out of it, I'm dead in the bet because I've got players behind him only in Scheffler and Rahm and Fleetwood. I wonder if my odds are the same, worse, or better than they were from before the tournament started. I feel like it's maybe about the same. I like that it's not exactly murderer's row in the top 5, although Cameron Young, who wasn't, I guess, playing that well coming in, is right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and Burns, who was a runner-up at the U.S. Open, who's kind of been nipped a couple of times in majors, he's there. But you're right. I think looking at your players, the McIntyre pick, Mike, is going to work out really nice for you in terms of the fact like he's right there with a chance going into the weekend. And then you've got some of the big names, including Scheffler, who, if he gets any putts going, I mean, his ball striking is to the green has been excellent. So he didn't make any putts today. If he can get a couple to go tomorrow, I think he would definitely be in the mix here to win.
You couldn't even possibly overstate this. Every hole, he's like 10 feet for birdie and missed. I feel like I haven't seen him make a putt in 3 years, Scheffler. But he's so good, and apparently even though you do see him crack sometimes, like emotionally, he must be so patient that he'll go to the next hole and do the same thing and miss again, and go to the next hole and do the same thing and miss again, because that would rattle a lot of people.
And he's not the only one. Fleetwood missed a real easy putt late. Rahm missed an easy putt late. Like these greens must be a little bit more trickier to read than maybe they're seeing, or even because the speed's a little slower. Maybe that's, bothering some of them. We know these greens are much slower than maybe what they're used to playing on the regular PGA Tour. I don't know. But yeah, for Scheffler, I mean, God, he's in such a good position. Even if he just made half of those putts that you're describing, he's definitely in the final group going into tomorrow. So, I mean, he's still in there with contention to win back-to-back Opens. So, yeah, I think there's a ton of good storylines. Fleetwood, essentially this being his home course, growing up, hometown guy. Like, Rahm has some interesting stories. And then, the two players that we mentioned already, Cam Young, Sam Burns, like, these are guys, if they won their first major, we would say, yep, this is their time for it. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of good stories in there with a couple of names that we all learn about each major. There's always a couple here, whether it's Herbert or Stuber or guys like that are involved. So yeah, it's a really, really good leaderboard. I like it. I guess we could still even argue that McIlroy's not out of it. He had a good day today, -1 now overall. He shot 3 under today. So maybe he'll get, something early getting going to get involved in the story. But obviously now, going into overnight and into tomorrow's round, the story is going to be a lot about Bryson. And, I just don't know if how he handled it was how I would have advised. But, I mean, he's definitely going to get the stories here coming into tomorrow for sure. And luckily we have 2 hours tomorrow and he's ready to talk about it.
Good, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't watching when this 5th hole stuff happened, but I saw some of his round, maybe like right around then. And it's the crowd egging him on to hit driver on holes like that. Maybe it was that hole. I don't know. I mean, I was maybe half asleep.
It's one of those drivable holes. Yeah, the 5th.
The crowd wants to see him pull the driver out. In fact, Scheffler played with him, and Scheffler hit a drive, and the crowd started going crazy while the ball was in the air, and it wasn't even that good a drive. It's because they see DeChambeau take the driver out. Like, they want to see him. They want to see him do that. So he has the crowd, right? Like, as much of a villain type as he is, he has a lot of detractors, but I think on a golf course, he has the fans. Yeah, because he's super exciting to watch. And I think if you're there and you're kind of sucked into the moment, like, who wants to see him pull out a 6-iron if you're sitting there right on the rope on the tee, right? Yeah.
You want to see him absolutely unload on it. And, I guess unfortunately for him, if he doesn't have this rules infraction penalty saga thing here, you and I are probably talking about how great he's played over 2 days, how he took a lot of criticism from Nick Faldo for not having a strategy and has essentially come out and played with great strategy, and looks like his short game has been the best it ever has been at an Open, and really maybe turned around from what we had talked about pre-tournament was, wow, what a terrible major season he's had with 3 missed cuts. Now he's going into the weekend as the favorite to win. But, obviously maybe that's going to take a back seat to this storyline here. I really hope he doesn't withdraw. I'm not saying that wouldn't be a major story because, like, geez, when would that have ever happened? A guy that has a chance to win a major just withdraws because he disagrees with a ruling. I think it'll add some good drama to see how he reacts to this going forward. He clearly can still win this. He's only 3 back with 36 holes to play. So I kind of would want to see that play out to see, like, okay, he's coming back here to play. Like, let's see how this affects him and how he handles it going forward.
Absolutely.
I would want to see that play out over the next 2 days.
For sure. Last thing, Brian. So 262s. We know who Sam Burns is. Lucas Herbert, Australia.
and live player, too. So that's why we really haven't seen him much on the PGA Tour. He actually won a live event. Let's see here. 3 events ago. Yeah, his Live Golf Virginia. He finished first in that event. So I know you follow that quite a bit.
I still have a Live Golf Virginia pennant from when I was a wee lad. My dad bought it
he
for
did play
me.
in the U.S. Open, missed the cut, but yep. Hey, he has a win this year at Live Golf Virginia. If you ask me any more about where that was played, I can't give you that. Sorry.
You've done enough. You've said enough.
Yeah.
I've asked you who Jackson Suber and this guy and different all the rule stuff. You've definitely come through great. Thanks for your time. Where are you guys going to be tomorrow?
We're at Niagara Falls Country Club, 2 hours. In addition to talking about this Bryson drama, it's the Porter Cup. It's the final round, so we'll kind of set the stage. If anybody wants to come watch tomorrow, it's free admission and up in Niagara Falls. And by the way, Bryson DeChambeau is a Porter Cup alum. He has played in it. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, David Duval, Ricky Fowler, Justin Thomas, Brooks Koepka, a lot of these guys. But yes, Bryson DeChambeau also had played in the Porter Cup in previous outings.
So obviously they've played then through the air quality stuff. They've played through it.
Yes, they have, and they seemingly from everything that I've been told, no delays or anything like that. So they played through all that, even though obviously that had to have been tough. Especially a lot of these players are carrying their own bags. So I mean, I'm not saying that they're doing construction work out here, but it's taxing on the body to do for sure.
Have golf courses been closing or no?
I think it's been kind of more of just like play at your own risk. I don't think I've heard anybody officially of closing, at least in Erie County, that area, or Niagara County. So I haven't heard any that have been closed. No.
Okay, very good. Thank you for this week, Brian. It's been great.
For sure. Enjoy the weekend.
You too. Brian Koziol on the West Shore Hotline. I could have said good luck, but I don't mean it. I mean, I've got 4 guys tied for 8th. It'll do. In a tournament where there are so many players and then so many guys, this particular tournament, European players or even, I guess, live players or both that are relatively unknown to me, I feel like it might be the toughest one to get right. Still a chance. And I know you're all rooting about this and you're focused on our Pick 10 game. I'm sure that's your driving influence for interest in the Open Championship. Okay, timeout, hydration break. I'm Mike Schopp, and this is WGR. Weekend, they had their All-Star break as well. 4 days off. 3-game series in Syracuse starting at 6:30 this evening. Then home after a day off Monday for 6 with Rochester. So the Bisons will be home all week next week. Talking to Sammy P earlier, I'll have that for you coming up, about the American League. Talked about the Tigers, the White Sox, Cleveland. Cleveland's game tonight with Pittsburgh was postponed because of the air quality. Toronto is sitting last, but nobody's really dead in the American League. I mean, you know how it is. There's still 70 games left or thereabouts, but Toronto dead last in the East, still only 2.5 out of a wild card. Boston has made it all the way up to the spot. Yankees are in a wild card now that they've had a tough few weeks, but still, close, 2.5 behind Tampa Bay. What have we got tonight? Yankees, Dodgers. Cole for the Yanks tonight. Boston won this afternoon against Tampa. They play again in a little bit more than an hour. Chris Sale for Atlanta tonight against Texas. If I have a baseball night, the first thing I do is what I'm doing right now. I'm looking for pitchers. Now we're talking about later games. Arizona, I'll take a pass on that. The Giants are terrible. I'm not a Giants fan at all, but I like baseball more when the Giants are good. If a Giants game at 10 o'clock is interesting in the standings, or if they have a great pitcher or something like that, I've always really liked that broadcast. And the ballpark is so pretty. So, you could get me to a 10 o'clock Giants game. They're in Seattle this weekend, so they're not at home anyway, but they're so bad now. They've really just, they were interesting for so long, and now they're about on the Rockies level, the Giants. So, again, they have a series this weekend in Seattle. And the Blue Jays have the White Sox this weekend starting tonight. I mentioned Sammy P on the White Sox, the AL Central, some NFL award stuff and more. That conversation is next. Happy Friday. I'm Mike Schopp. This is WGR.
Looking forward to the weekend. Yesterday was Thursday. Today, yeah, it's Friday.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We so excited. We gonna have a ball today. Tomorrow is Saturday.
I'm itching inside. My liver's all twisted up. But you know what I did? I took Deborah, went to the liquor store. I loaded up with alcohol, more specifically vodka, whiskey, beer, tequila, more beer, more vodka, more whiskey, and more beer.
On WGR, Sports Radio 550.